I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, so this is a pretty special edition because you are at Monterey Car Week,
Yes.
Carmel, California, Pebble
Yes.
Beach. They're like so many places, but it's all the same thing.
Yeah, it's really confusing. Someone was asking me, so where actually is it? Because people use a bunch of different words to describe the same thing, but I'm physically in Monterey, California, which is basically Carmel, which is basically Pebble Beach.
And, you know, when we were young reporters, the Detroit Car Show was the main event, or maybe Paris and Geneva for you. But those car shows are no longer a draw, like at all, right? And this has
No.
become the most important event, even for new cars.
It's really interesting. So I was trying to think, I think this is my 15th year coming to Pebble Beach, to the Concours d'Elegance, and to this whole week, which has turned into a week of car things. And yeah, it's like, I would say since 2017, 2016, 2017, 2018, the news cycle surrounding Pebble Beach is like a car show. And especially since the coronavirus pandemic, when, no one could travel and sort of everyone realized, well, we don't have to adhere to any sort of automotive car calendar schedule. We can put things out whenever we want. Pebble Beach and the events around it, Monterey Car Week, has just become sort of the headlining car show, for lack of a better word, for new cars, for concepts, for hypercars, for BMWs, for Porsches, if there's, and the funny thing is, all of the car executives come here now. They may not go to every automotive show that I guess we kind of have the LA Auto Show still. They don't all even come to that, but they all want to come to Pebble Beach and to Monterey Car Week in August because it's a really nice place to be. It certainly beats sitting in the back of a boardroom in a convention hall under those fluorescent lights. But also the whole vibe has completely changed from just old cars, and there are lots of those, of course, in the auctions, but we've got a lot of new stuff too. So it's really fun. It's really intense. You kind of got to pick where you want to be and stick to it.
All right, so let's pick that apart a little bit and talk about the events. I want to hear about the auctions and the Concours d'Elegance, but first the new vehicles. I remember when you were there last year, I think Lamborghini was showing the Lanzador and
maybe a Revuelto reveal as well, or no? That might have been.
I don't recall that there, but I know that you've driven that car now. And
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit about that. And I remember there were also some normal car brands, like Infiniti was showing, a new vehicle last year.
Oh, totally. Well, this year, Infinity's showing their new generation, next generation QX80. Lincoln is showing the new Navigator. Acura's showing a very exciting concept electric vehicle. So, it's really interesting, and it really is a mix. It's not just hypercars. Of course, those are what make the headlines, but Cadillac's here. I don't know about Ford. I'd have to check on that. But yeah, it really is a range. And I like that, more and more. It doesn't have to be, some of the events are expensive, but some of them are free. And if you're in the area at all, you're going to see a bunch of things for free. The access is actually pretty great.
Do you get to drive multiple different vehicles, or you just, does Lamborghini give you the Revuelto and that's your ride for the week?
I'm very grateful for this week because I do get to drive a number of things. I drove the Revuelto up here from Los Angeles yesterday, which this is the hybrid Lamborghini. It's the starting price is over $600,000.
Oh my goodness.
It's a wild car, let me tell you.
It's the Aventador successor, right? So it is their flagship V12. It just has an electric
Yes.
motor as well, and it costs a lot more than the Aventador did just to start.
Yes, and it's really interesting because Lamborghini here is going to be unveiling the Huracan successor, which will also be a hybrid, and they're showing their hybrid Urus. So this is basically Lamborghini saying, we're going all in, all hybrid. We are not doing EVs. They're sticking with the hybrid thing. And so I was really curious about the Revuelto. And it's really interesting. I have to say, even this morning, I drove it up to a breakfast sort of up at a ranch. And I love the fact that you can turn on that car and drive it out of a parking lot and not wake anybody up. I mean, because it's in electric mode.
Oh, that's
So
stealth
the whole
mode.
thing, of course, with Lamborghini is, they're so loud. The engines are just really, really roaring and poppy and crunchy and all of the things that we love. But it's kind of cool to have one that can have this stealth mode so that you can pull out of a parking lot in the early morning in the fog and no one's going to hear and no one's going to know. I actually really like that. I thought that was very cool.
I mean, for 600
So
grand, I feel like it's fair to expect a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. I have to say, this morning on the way back from that, I filled it up for the fourth time already. So the fuel efficiency is not one of the high points on it. And I got the car yesterday, and we're on our fourth tank. So fuel efficiency is not great in that car, but it certainly is really fun to drive. And then on the way back, I'll just be driving the Ferrari SUV, the Pro Sangua
Oh,
that
just that.
we've discussed. Oh, but here's why I'm excited about that actually, because the Revuelto does not have very much luggage space. And so it really was a challenge to fit clothing and hats and boots and coats for a week into that car. Now, I did pull it off, but the Pro Sangua at least will have a little bit more room.
So you
But
and Magnus and all your stuff. Or did you take two cars?
yeah. Well, actually, I have to tell you, Magnus is showing a car at the Quail, and it's his 930 Turbo, and that car was shipped ahead of time, and we actually put his luggage in that car. So,
Ah.
so that's how we made it work because it was actually only my luggage on the way up, and his luggage was in his car that we retrieved once we arrived. So it did help to have that car.
All right, I want to
Um,
get to that. I want to get to that in a second, but I know that you have already been pulled over by the police. I don't know any of the details of this story, so I'm excited to hear. But I know like airplanes and helicopters are involved. I saw Magnus
yes.
sent me a picture, texted me a picture of like the police
I
in the
was
rearview
literally
mirror.
conversing
What
with the.
happened?
All right. Well, here's what happened. We leave LA, uh, and I'm being careful, and I've made this drive, not 15 years because I've done other things, but I've made the drive many times, and I have been pulled over before. And intellectually, I know the guys are out this week. They've got their quotas to make, they've got their budgets to make. The guys, the chippies are out, and they're going to be on the hunt. I know this. And I even say to Magnus, I'm not going over 90. I don't care who's passing me, trying to get this, it's an expensive, very flashy Lamborghini. I said
Everybody
to him,
wants
I'm
to
not,
race you, right? Everybody.
yeah, completely. They're all around the car taking photos. And I said to him, I'm not going over 90. I said it. And, I was cruising at, you know, less than 90, being passed considerably. And then I discover accidentally that under the hybrid drive mode on the Revuelto, it limits you to 93 miles per hour. That's just in a certain drive mode. You can switch out of that drive mode and obviously go quite a bit faster. But the drive mode I was in, I found out, oh, I'm flooring it right now and I'm only going 93 because it's electronically limiting me. So of course I switch out of that mode because who likes to be no one wants to
You
have
don't
it.
want nannies.
You can't put a saddle on a Mustang. So I just switch out of that mode without, thinking about it. And, the car feels great. And I have to say, this is one of those cars that the faster you go, the better it feels. And we took the highway one up to Monterey is closed. It's under repair. So we're inland. We're taking the inland straight shot up. It's like 320 miles. It's through 100 degree temperatures. It's really hot, but it's just a flat, big, open highway. It's a divided highway. So you just have 3 lanes, big, flat, wide open. And the car's just feeling so great. And, we're talking about Alex Roy and how incredible it was that he made his cannonball run across the country. And, of course, it's like I'm driving and I'm like, wow, he really maintained this speed and he did it. And, it's in the back of my head. And, we stopped for lunch and everything's great. And, we get back in the car, we stop in Paso Robles, and which is about 120 miles away from Monterey, and we map it the rest of the way. And Magnus at one point goes, "Oh, you're making really good time. You've cut off, 2 or 3 minutes from our estimated arrival time."
It's a challenge.
I'm not blaming that on him. That's not his fault. I was the one driving. I take full responsibility. But that was in the back of my head, and the car is just feeling great. Before I know it, there's someone behind me with a loud siren and some lights going, and I didn't even see him. And I'm not going to say how fast I was going.
Just to paint a better picture, you're in like a flat black, like a flying saucer, essentially, is what this thing looks like.
Yes, it looks like it's like a bat. It literally looks like a bat. It's like an Aventador, all blacked out, but even lower and more aggressive. And I literally didn't even see. And he pulled, license and registration. And Magnus actually said, "How did you clock the speed?" And the cop said, "Well, I visually estimated your speed. And then I got you on the radar at something different." And he had been going on the opposite direction, and he came up behind me. He flipped around. He did a U-turn, flipped around, and then got a radar.
What was he driving? An SUV or a?
Oh, he was in some Challenger
Dodge
style.
Charger. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I said, "Hey, it's a press car," because I knew he was going to check the license and registration. He goes, I know. I could see from the plates. So he's well aware of what's going on. Nice enough guy. And he basically just said, "Well, I'm going to write you up for this speed. If it was a mile higher, the consequences would have been quite a bit worse." But, I said, "Thank you very much, officer. Of course, we'll be very careful. I'll let all my friends know that you and your fellow law enforcement officials are out today." And this sounds bad, but there was nothing reckless about it. It's wide open road. I just didn't see him.
There is a speed limit there, right? Because I know in a lot of the West, there isn't anymore.
Speed limit is 70. Yeah, the speed limit, the posted speed limit was 70. So, yes, so that happened. And he did say, "Oh, by the way, we've got," I think he said, 2 helicopters and 3 planes, or it was 3 helicopters and 2 planes up this week monitoring. So, and this was in King City, near King City. So they're pretty well known for pulling people over.
I don't know why the law enforcement, though, wants to do a full court press when they know that there's going to be a lot of people and flashy cars that want to test them out. It's a fun week. You're
it's
a journalist.
Fun week, and it was not reckless driving. It was.
I totally understand. You're on an open highway, 3 lanes, no traffic.
Wide open highway. I was not changing lanes. I was just bombing straight down the middle. So, understandably, of course, I respect law enforcement, but I blame it on the car, because that car is unbelievable. And I was just cruising. I was actually genuinely surprised when I heard him behind me. It just feels so comfortable and easy. It just feels like you're cruising. And I've been, on tracks before. There's no effort at all involved in hitting that type of speed. So my point is, if you do find yourself lucky enough to buy this wonderful machine, you should probably add a line item in your budget
Yeah.
for tickets because it's just too easy to drive really quickly.
So I have learned uh, over the past few years that in America, when you get a speeding ticket, you had the fine, but you also have the points. And if you can afford the fine, then it's the points that really annoy you because
Yes.
you're in danger of losing your license, which for you is kind of like losing your livelihood. So, and for me too.
Correct.
So, what I do is I always find local lawyers who are
Mhm.
sort of friends of the bar, right? And if you get a
Mhm.
local lawyer, usually for, depending where you are, two, four, $600, they essentially get you a fine only, no points. I think Matt Farah on
Yes.
his podcast like gets sponsored by one of those things. So, do you go and find a
Yes.
lawyer straight away?
I haven't been able to do that quite yet. Currently, knock on wood, I don't have any points on my California license, so I would like to keep it that way. And yes, I will be exploring that. I'm pretty. It's just so funny because I'm not a fast driver necessarily. It's a job hazard, and it's I have to test the car to its abilities.
Of
I have to test
course.
the car to its fullest extent.
Yeah.
So this is in the line of duty.
Well, you've taken one for the team. We really appreciate it, Hannah.
Oh, thank
All right,
you.
so that's awesome, and I can't wait to see the car. I really
I'll,
haven't,
I'll,
besides on the internet, I haven't really seen it. So you'll drive the Ferrari SUV back, which also has a 12-cylinder motor, and I imagine
yes,
is also going to be pretty easy in terms of the acceleration and top speed, but you'll be more
yes.
careful.
The rest of the way to Monterey, I think I drove 63 to 65 miles an hour, which is basically limp mode in a Lamborghini. I mean,
Yeah.
I was literally, people were looking at me like, are you okay? Like, I mean, I was under 65 for sure. So on the way back, I will be extremely slow, unfortunately. But, oh, what I was going to say is, there is something to be said for driving these slow old cars like these Rolls Royces I drive at home because you can't drive fast if you want to. It's really true. There is something for everyone here. If you like muscle cars, if you like Corvettes, I don't know
Yes,
about
and
the
yes.
truck and the van culture. Yeah. I haven't seen too many trucks and vans yet, but you never know. There's just something for everyone. Oh, on the way up too, and this was really cool. We saw it looked like a Model T, but we saw these two dudes on the highway going about 50 in what looked like some sort of Model T car, obviously on their way up here, just enjoying life, not getting tickets. It looked great. So there really is something for everyone. And I definitely think, for the people who find their way here, you make friends so fast with like-minded individuals and you kind of never know what you're going to end up being able to drive.
Yep.
If you're just kind of a friendly, chatty person, I mean, you would kill Matt up here because everyone wants to show their car, share their car, talk about their car. It really is a really nice thing. And we were at a dinner last night, and Sir Michael Kadori, who owns the Quail and Peninsula Hotels in Hong Kong and around Asia, he gave this really nice toast about how in a moment where it seems that there are a lot of divisions in the world, and especially in the US right now, it's nice to have a week where you feel that you can connect with all different types of people around the love of a car and
Yeah.
around the love of motorsport. And he did have a really nice point. It's certainly a privileged place to be in, but in a way, it is very equalizing because the cars really are a common bond, I would say.
Forgive my ignorance, but the Quail, is that a resort or what is that?
The Quail is a golf club, also very close to Carmel, and it's also a car show. So on Friday, a lot of the new car debuts are happening at a car show called the Quail,
Hmm.
which is, the Pebble Beach car show is Sunday. That's only old cars. That's just basically a beauty contest for cars. The Quail, which is another car show that's happening on Friday, that's where all the new car debuts happen, and that is on the grounds of the Quail hotel and lodge and golf
So
course.
you know what's weird? So that's cool and good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the SL is the Mercedes sports car. I think the Gull Wing was probably the first iteration of it, right?
Mhm.
That's so famous. Everyone knows that one. And
Yeah.
now I just test drove the AMG 63, the new convertible version. But
Love it.
SL stands for Sport Leicht. So it's a small sports car. And so it's weird that Maybach, why would there be a Maybach version of the Sport Leicht? Doesn't it seem strange?
That's a great question, Matt Miller. Um, I think because there's money to be made,
Yeah, no,
you
I get
know,
that. Yeah.
no, I mean, I'm laughing because you're asking the obvious question, which is so true. And this Maybach SL is actually heavier than the AMG SL because it has more systems to make it a bit of a softer ride, a more comfortable ride. But obviously Mercedes has brought back the Maybach brand and it's been a little bit spotty. Remember like the Maybachs from the early 2000s that like
Yeah.
Jay-Z and Kanye had? And so it's been a little bit spotty, but I think they might have hit their stride now. Like, remember the Virgil Abloh concepts that came out, and Maybach is basically potential to have very wealthy people create very outrageous designs on their car.
Yeah.
So this SL, as you rightfully point out, I think it's all about these crazy design and aesthetics. Like this car in particular, it's got a black hood. It only comes with a white interior only, which has this floral stitching on the seats. There are Maybach logos just printed everywhere on the car. It's just an opportunity for people to spend money on making something that feels rare and exclusive.
By the way, speaking of heavy sports cars, I spent the last week in the Jaguar F-Type R, which is a car that I don't
Oh,
think they've changed the design for like a decade, right?
I don't either.
They
I wish
didn't
they
even,
would.
I don't even think they updated the interior, even though they've updated the interior of the F Pace. But I found after a while, it is, it's a heavy convertible. It's more of a grand tourer than a sports car. I really liked it. And it's all about that old supercharged 5 liter motor.
Yeah.
They just don't need to change anything.
I remember really liking that car when it came out and thinking it was a lot of car for the money and really nice value and really a pretty car. And yeah, you're right. It's like, what's going on at Jaguar? I mean, let's see something new. Land Rover, this year at Pebble Beach, actually, Land Rover is showing a new version of something that already exists, and then the Queen's Defenders. But there's nothing from Jag. And to your point, I think the F-Type is a great car, and it would be nice to see more.
Yeah, I think they could do more with it. But I just thought, I mean, I guess it's a better price point than an Aston Martin. So compared to like the DB12 that we drove, I think
Yeah.
it's just so much better value for money. But
Yes.
it does beg the question, like, what happened to that brand? What are they doing?
I don't know.
Is it gonna shut down? Are they gonna sell it?
When I reach out, as I recently did going into this show, and said, what's going on with both brands, I just get an answer for Land Rover, for
Right.
JL for Land JLR is basically now Land Rover. So I don't know. It's weird,
Yeah.
It's like when brands go away, like we were talking about Dodge the other week. It's weird when a brand that has so much awareness behind it and a lot of history and heritage kind of goes dormant.
Now Dodge does have finally the new Charger out, the electric muscle car. Maybe you'll
That
see that.
actually out? Is that actually out
It's actually out. They've
on the
been
road?
showing it. They've been driving it. I think the straight pipes. I know the straight pipes have been behind the wheel. I love those Canadian YouTubers. And
Oh.
maybe you'll see it at the Quail on Friday. Is there anything else at the Quail that you're excited to see, or do we move on to the Queen's Land Rover? Any other
Hmm.
new car releases, or I saw like
Well,
Spike Ferriston posted a picture of some strange looking Porsche at the LAX, but I think it was like a Tuthill
okay.
sort of a
So,
massage version. But
well, speaking of Porsche, Porsche's going to show their a 911 50th year anniversary version. And I don't really know any more details than this. We're recording before the car debuts, so they're going to make 1,974 of them, which of course is the 50-year anniversary. But it's some turbo 50-year anniversary version.
Ah, well, isn't that the
There's that.
930? Isn't that why Magnus has the 930 there?
Yeah, yes. But that's unrelated to the debut. I mean, it's 50 years. So yeah, there's a lot of like celebration around the 930. But Porsche specifically is bringing out some new special version of their modern 911 to
Hmm.
celebrate that. Um, Also, Roof is going to be showing, I think they're calling it the Roof Rodeo, which is an off-road sort of stylized version of their take on a Porsche car. And the interiors are sort of inspired by Ralph Lauren, Double RL, sort of a Western look. So I'm actually excited to see what that looks like in real life. I haven't seen that.
That should be cool. I
Um,
hear so many. By the way, I grew up reading about the Roof 911, and I thought as a kid with my Road
Yellowbird.
and Track magazine that it was rough. That was before I moved to
That's rough.
Germany. But Double RL, I will say, as just an aside, well, they nail the look, but they totally flunk the quality. So they have the look of like American traditional workwear, what the Japanese do right. The Japanese, like
Yes.
the real McCoy and
Yes.
Toys McCoys and all those guys, they do a great job of it. And Double RL gets the look right, but the quality is just horrendous for the price.
Are you
That's a
speaking
personal
about this?
observation.
Are you speaking specifically about their leather jackets? Because I know you're quite a
Leather
connoisseur. Or do you mean
jackets, the
general?
jeans, the shirts, everything. It's a whole kind of vibe that the Japanese have been doing well since basically the Japanese bought all the machines that we used to use to make traditional clothing after World War II. And then, now we use newer modern manufacturing techniques that make much cheaper, more disposable clothing. And the Japanese, like if these few brands, they like Buzz Rickson, they do it right. And so Double RL is kind of trying to bite that style in a sense, but they don't use the right stuff to do it with, and that's just a little
It's
pet peeve of mine. You mentioned the Queen's Land Rovers, and I
there's
think you mean the actual Queen, like her actual
yes.
cars, right?
This is kind of cool. So Land Rover is bringing over 10 Defenders and Land Rovers that were owned and operated by the Queen herself at like Balmoral and Sandringham. And I'm not even sure if I'm saying those right since I'm not British, but at her different country estates around the country. And let's not forget, she trained as, I believe, a mechanic during the war. So she kind of knows her stuff. So yeah, it's very, some of them are on loan from the royal family. Some were actually owned by private individuals that they're bringing over. But I'm actually excited to see those just because they're cool.
What are the other events? There's the Quail on Friday, Pebble Beach on Sunday. I've heard that there's actually like racing or at least
Yes.
like,
I'm getting
oh,
my schedule. Okay, sorry. Keep
okay,
going.
so there's like, what do they have? Like autocross, or do they have? Is Sears Point there? I mean, like, do you actually have a
So,
track?
yeah, so Laguna Seca, that
Oh,
that Laguna Seca track is just over the hill. It's like a 15-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now, and there's racing all week. My good friend Eli Kogan's out there right now supporting a race team, but it's all vintage racing, super cool. The big day at the races is Saturday, but yeah, people are out. Some people come to Monterey Car Week and basically just spend it at the track and get really sunburned and dehydrated. And it's vintage car racing all day, every day. It's super cool. I may find my way out there on Saturday, but yeah, so there's car racing. Um, let's see. Tonight I'm gonna go have a look at, we talked about that Eccentrica Diablo V12 resto mod. I'm gonna go have
oh
a look at
yes.
that. Yeah, so I'll report back how good or bad that looks. I won't be driving it yet.
I am going to be interviewing Dave Majors, the CEO of Meekum Auctions, and I do have
Oh,
to say I was
good.
surprised that Meekum is there because I thought this is only about the hoity-toity, like the Sotheby's of the world. So
That's a common misconception. I think it more and more, like just like I said, there's something for everyone.
I want him to give me the lowdown on like the auction industry right now because I know it was in such flux after Hagerty
Yeah.
came in, and I don't know what if it's settled or what's the story.
It will be really interesting to see. I was just trying to do some sort of pre-research. I was reading Simon Kitson's K500 analysis newsletter that Stephen Wakefield writes, and they basically were saying that this year it looks like the average price of the car being sold at auction is up a little bit, but roughly the same. Let me just pull up this data because I actually wrote it down because it's really good. 1 second.
Take your time.
Last year, the auctions had slightly lackluster figures, and we can possibly expect the same because it's been sort of slower this year to date. But we did see record-breaking prices in Florida at the Miami auctions. But they did say this year it's interesting. There are about 650 cars that will be sold. The average value of a car being sold this year is $916,000 per car,
Boah.
which is up from $887,000 last year. Yeah.
But this is only at Monterey Car Week, or this is at
Yeah, this
auctions?
is the Monterey Car Week. This is
Okay.
just this week. Just this week. The average value per car going on sale this week, $916,000. 17% of those cars are Ferraris. So, you have $1 million Ferraris that really raises the average.
Right.
But over half of those offerings are at no reserve, which is good. And another interesting thing that he pointed out is that the average age of cars being sold this year is 1971. Now, last year was 1964. So that I think
Whoa.
is really interesting because it means that this is a generational shift. We're getting closer and closer to like the Countachs and the cool stuff from the late 90s and early 2000s. They also said there are far fewer pre-war cars offered for sale. That makes sense because things are slowly aging up.
There aren't as many, like people have bought them and are holding, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And there are 53 cars offered this year that are valued at $3 million or more. Last year it was 45 cars. So we can kind of say that there are going to be more big ticket sales this year. Of course, the big unknown that everyone's pointing out is this is an election year. And how does that affect sales? How does that affect how people want to spend their money? That's what we don't know yet.
What you mean,
Um,
like because people would otherwise be donating to a super PAC?
Maybe, or, depending on what happens with interest rates, what happens with the stock market, people thinking about where they want to put their money, I
Yeah.
think is the general, like, do I want to put it in sort of a hard asset like a car, or do I want to put it somewhere else?
Cool. So you've got the new car show at the Quail. You've got the old car show, the
Yes.
Concours d'Elegance. You've got auctions everywhere, like not just RM
Auctions everywhere,
Sotheby's.
multiple days. Bonhams is having their auction preview today. I'm going to try to hit that later. We will have an auction recap on the Monday after, so we'll have our full analysis of what actually happened and what it all means.
And there's
Yeah,
racing at Laguna
racing every
Seca,
day
and
at
I imagine
Seca.
rallies all the time. Um,
Rallies all the time. And there's also a big Porsche show before the Quail. There's a big show for classic Porsches at an offsite location. Sometimes I can't go to that because I've got to get to the Quail for the new car stuff. But yeah, there's like it shows just for Italian cars. It's a lot.
well, it sounds like fun. Next year, I'm definitely in.
I think it has to be done for the podcast sake, you know?
Yes, I totally agree. It'll be a
Yeah.
special edition. Um,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I guess I would ask you normally, like, are you driving anything cool next week? But I know that you're driving home in a
I'm driving
Ferrari.
very slowly. I'm going to be obeying
Don't
all.
let it ruin you, Hannah. I mean, you've got to open that Ferrari up. It would be a
It's
crime
research.
to drive it
It's
slowly.
research. I have to do a service for our readers.
Yes,
Come on,
exactly.
right?
I will
Yeah.
tell you, I once got pulled over. I was driving to, of all things, a polo match at
Oh,
Mashomick.
that's very posh.
in a white Bentley Mulsanne with purple leather. And I was dressed like an absolute clown because I was
Oh
going to a
no.
polo match. And I was doing like maybe 120 and a 65.
Oh, no.
And
Oh
the
no.
officer at first was pretty angry, but I said, "Listen, it's not my car. This car is worth more than my house. I'm just a lowly journalist testing this out, and I realize I'm dressed like an absolute tool, but it's kind of like um, sarcastic because I'm going to this polo match." And he was on my wavelength. He was like, "Ah, I get it." So then he just wrote me
What?
a ticket for no seatbelt.
What?
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Wait, where was this? Where?
This was must have been on the Taconic because I was headed up to Mashomick and Millbrook.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, you're very lucky. I don't know if they do that out in California. These guys are really gunning. They are not playing around.
I mean, I've
That
been
is
in other instances I've been unlucky. So this was, I think, the karma, the payback.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll see you back here, same time, same place next week. I'm Matt Miller.
I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.